Hi, good day. So we are now proceeding to our second lesson, art appreciation, creativity, imagination, and expression. So let's start. So it takes an artist to make art. So as we have discussed in the first lesson, so not everything you see is an artwork. So it has to have an artist or art must be made by man. So one may perceive beauty on a daily basis. However, not every beautiful thing that can be seen or experienced may be truly called a work of art. So what are the prerequisites to create an artwork? So it has to be a product of man's creativity, imagination, and expression. I'm so sorry na hindi siya makita dito sa baba. But those are those three. So you could check that out in your module. Again, art must be a product of man's creativity, number one, imagination, number two, and expression, number three. So now, what is the role of creativity in making art? Is it really important? So, creativity requires thinking outside of the box. So, how could you create something? So, it has to be what? It has to be original for you to be called creative. So we say that something is done creatively when we have not yet seen anything like it or when it is out of the ordinary. Again, creativity is thinking outside of the box. So it has to be what? Created na wala pa tayong nakikita na gaya nun before. So it has to be unique and it has to be original. So, a creative artist does not simply copy or imitate another artist's work. So, however, we could be inspired by another artist's work as long as we would not copy the entire thing because that would be plagiarism. And we don't want to plagiarize other people's work. So, he embraces originality and he puts flavor into his work so to create an creative piece. So, for example, I'm so sorry, hindi makita. Si Ariana Grande yan. Okay. So, we have Celine Dion and Peebo Bryson. They sang the original Beauty and the Beast song. So, during the remake of, or the live action of Beauty and the Beast, John Legend and Ariana Grande created their own rendition of the original Beauty and the Beast song. So, we can see here, although they were inspired by the original song, John Legend and Ariana Grande, they still added their own touch to it or their own flavor to it. So they became creative in adding new notes, medyo may pakulot ng konti, may pagtaas ng ng pitch ng konti sa ibang part. So makikita natin hindi nila ginaya entirely. Although the lyrics are the same, but the way how they sang is different from the original. So they added their own touch to it. So they became creative. So, art is a product of imagination and imagination as a product of art. So, how will we be able to explain this quote? So, we have art as a product of imagination. So, this one is pretty much self explanatory. So, through our imagination, when we imagine something, so it ignites our ability to create art. So, art is a product of our imagination. So, from our mind, into our hands. So we call that as art. We make art through our imagination put into reality. What about imagination as a product of art? So from art, there comes imagination. So kung yung una, imagination muna, bago art, ngayon naman, yung art ngayon ang nag-i-ignite ng imagination ng viewer or ng audience. So how does it happen? So where do you think famous writers, painters, and musicians get their ideas? So, saan kaya sila nakakakuha ng idea? Bigla na lang ba yan nag-a-appear? Or may nagtitrigger dyan? Or meron silang inspiration for that? So, it all starts with the human mind. It all begins with imagination. So, upon imagining something, they were able to create an artwork. So, imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Okay, so what we only know as facts, they are limited only with the reality. But when we say imagination, it embraces the entire world and it goes beyond what the naked eye can see. So it could also exist kahit na hindi siya nag-exist dito sa reality. Say for example, we have Dumbo. Okay, so si Dumbo ay flying elephant. So we cannot see a literal elephant here in reality. Kahit saang bansa ka pa pumunta, wala kang makikita na elephant na kayang lumipad, okay? But through imagination, because of imagination that goes beyond the reality, beyond what the naked eye can see, this was able to exist. Okay? So art can exist because of imagination. What else? Taylor Swift, love story. So ito yung isa pang example. Yung original na story ni Romeo and Juliet, it doesn't have a happy ending. But because of imagination, Taylor Swift imagined that there could be an alternate ending for Romeo and Juliet wherein they could be happy. So, because of her imagination, nagkaroon ng alternative ending si Romeo and Juliet wherein naging masaya sila together. So, katulad nung sa kanta ni Taylor Swift. So, dito makikita natin, imagination plays a big role in creating artworks which are iconic. Okay? So, through imagination, one is able to craft something new and something better. Okay, so when you combine imagination and creativity, so again, creativity is thinking outside of the box, imagination is thinking beyond reality. When you combine them together, of course, you are sure to have an artwork which is original, both original and entertaining. So next, artists use their imagination that gives birth to reality through creation. So of course, sabi nga natin, kailangan kung ano yung nasa mind, hindi naman natin yan mapapakita sa iba kung hindi natin siya gagawin or hindi natin siya ipapakita. So, paano natin siya ma-express or how would we express what goes into our mind or what comes to our mind? Of course, we create. Kasi hindi naman pwede na basahin mo isip ko. Hindi naman pwedeng ganon. So, ang nangyayari is, syempre, kung ano naisip mo, kailangan i-create mo para makita din at ma-share mo siya sa iba. So, imagination is a product of reality, is a product of art rather, and art is also a product of imagination. So, what about art as an expression? So, how do we express ourselves using art? So, there may have been times when you felt something is going on with you and you try to explain it, but you don't know how to explain what you are feeling or what you are thinking of. So finally, you try to release yourself from this tormenting and disabling state by doing something which is called as expressing oneself. So you want to process these feelings and you want to make known of these feelings. So you decided to express them. So an emotion again will remain unaddressed until you express it. Hindi naman pwede na Pinoy henyo lagi, hulaan ng mga tao kung ano yung nararamdaman mo. Hindi nila malalaman yun kung hindi mo i-express. So, halimbawa, hindi ka naman nagpapakita ng any signs that you are jealous. Hindi makakaramdam yung ibang tao na nagsiselos ka. So, kailangan mo talaga na, kumbaga, drop some hints or express it at least. So there are times that when we are sad and we don't know why are we sad. So sometimes we tend to listen to music para medyo kumalma tayo. Okay? Or for example, you want to be happy. So malungkot ka, gusto mo ngayon maging masaya. You listen to music because it express yourself that you want to be happy despite of what you are feeling. So you want to be or you want to express happiness even though you are sad. So you tend to listen to music. What else? Minsan tayo, nagsusulat tayo kapag nalulungkot tayo, tas feeling natin wala tayong mapagsabihan, or hindi natin ma-process ng maayos yung feelings natin, we tend to write on our journals, on our diaries, because it's therapeutic. When we are writing, it's like we are expressing ourselves and we are parang nababawasan yung burden, yung bigat sa dibdib na meron tayo kapagka nasusulat natin siya. Sometimes kapagka nasa Facebook lang tayo, 'di ba? Minsan kapag malungkot tayo, napapa-publish tayo sa notes or napapa-publish tayo sa My Day ng mga quotes. But why? Because that's a way of expressing ourselves. And those are examples of art. Yung mga quotes, yung mga lyrics ng kanta na ini-status natin na same din ang nararamdaman natin, that is an example of expressing your emotions through art. So there are lots of ways of expressing oneself through art, namely using art forms. So we have a lot of art forms, but we are only going to discuss some of the most evident and kumbaga pinaka nagagamit na mga art forms. So what are examples of art forms? So you have visual arts, um, one of the most famous, one of the most well-known, one of the plentiest art forms out there. So when you hear the word art, ang pumapasok sa isip mo kagad drawing, painting, kasi nga sila yung pinaka-bountiful. So you have visual arts. So technically, when we say visual arts, these are artworks which appeal to the sense of sight. Mainly, yun yung kanilang purpose. So examples of that are sketches, drawings, paintings. So yun ay mga examples natin ng visual arts. Next is we have film. So film refers to the art of capturing movement itself. So ibig sabihin, pag sinabi nating film, ang kinukuhaan nyo talaga ay yung movement o yung paggalaw ng mga tao or yung paggalaw ng animation. Yun yung talagang, kumbaga, bentahin ninyo. Yun yung gusto ninyong ipakita or yun yung kinakapture ninyo. Now, does it stop from there? Kapagka nakuha mo na yung movement, nakuhaan mo na yung movement using your phone or using cameras, okay na ba yun? Matatawag niyo siyang film? No, not yet. So, it has to create a story. So, you have to capture movement plus dagdagan mo siya ng story by adding dialogue and music. So, of course, kasama na din dun yung lighting, kasama na rin yung costumes, but most of the time, ang talagang kailangan dun is movement, dialogue, and music. So, example niyan ay ito. So, we have on the left side, we have The Kiss by Gustav Klimt. So ito is isang example ng visual art. So this one is a painting. So again, it appeals to the visual senses or the sense of sight. So what about film? So if you're familiar with this is the film Avatar. So one of the highest ranking films out there, pinakamalaki yung kinita. So itong Avatar is an example ng film. So actually, these two art forms are very plenty and I'm very sure that you are familiar with these already. So no need to explain so much about these two. So this one is another example of visual art. So this tackles about hyper-realism. So when we say hyper-realism, this one is showing an artwork which looks so real, as if it's really, kumbaga, literally true. Okay, so in this video, we have observed an example of a visual art. So namely, this technique is called hyperrealism. So it aims to become so realistic that you cannot distinguish which is a picture, the real picture, and the drawing. So ito ay isang drawing, pero kita naman natin yung detail. It looks so real. So para siyang picture. So we call that as hyperrealism. So this is an example again of a visual art. So next, art forms, we have performing arts and literary arts. So performing arts, of course, this is a kind of artwork wherein it aims to be performed in front of an audience. So performing arts is a live art, and the artist's medium is mainly the human body. So although we could use other things like puppets, masks, costumes, but the main medium that is being used is the body of the performer. So it also employs yon nga other kind of art such as yung visual art as backdrop, pwede ding props, pwede rin yung mga sounds, okay? But the main medium, again, is the body of the performer. Literary arts, of course, pertains to the artworks which use words. So, things such as novels, stories, mga Wattpad stories, poems. So, yung mga yon, spoken word poetry. So, anything that the artist could use na para to express themselves with the use of words. Okay? So, it could be readers or audiences if you are using spoken word poetry. So, literary arts. So, example. So, this one, cosplaying, is actually an example of performance arts or performing arts. Why? Because in cosplaying, syempre, you are using your body to portray the character. So, although you use the props and you use the costumes, but the main performer, of course, uses its main medium, which is the body of the performer herself or himself. So, let's have the example.